Hey everyone, it's your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and today I have a very special guest. We're going to talk about bankruptcy. Bankruptcy has been flooding the media, flooding our attention spans, especially with certain celebrities that we know about. Pinky Cole, Slutty Vegan, and that brand and franchise has gotten controversial about bankruptcy. But bankruptcy is something that we all hear about, but come to find out, it's not as negative and is not a bad thing that we have been brought up to think and feel, and it has become this emotional play and feeling like I have completely failed. I have screwed the pooch on my business. Well, you guys are in for a treat. I have found a true homegrown expert of Oklahoma. This gentleman here that I have coming to the stage, Mr. Luke Homan, a bankruptcy attorney in Oklahoma, great state of Oklahoma City. He helps hundreds of people each year get out of debt, and now they can discharge student loans even in their bankruptcy. He's here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage to help us peel back the layers, peel back the onions, and help us get a better understanding and hopefully get to a better place. So, without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. Luke Homan. How are you, Mr. Homan, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to learn and pick your brain, get some nuggets, get some information here, and get some insight to who you are. Sir, bankruptcy is a unique specialty. You have an incredible mind. You could do anything in the world. How did you find yourself? You could have gone any direction with law. Why bankruptcy? Why did you get in that space? Why did you enter that space and become the number one sought after gentleman in Oklahoma for bankruptcy?
It's sort of something I fell into. I went to law school. I thought the idea of lawyering was going to be great. I ended up being a personal injury attorney, and I just hated it. It was not the right fit for me. And so my wife and I actually moved to Oklahoma after I'd been an attorney for about 5 years. I just started blasting out resumes. And a gentleman who hired me said, "Good news, Luke, you can become a bankruptcy attorney right now because you can get sworn into federal court and start practicing bankruptcy immediately." And I was like, "Well, I don't know anything about it." And he's like, "Yeah, it's going to be fine. Come work for me." And so I did, and I discovered that I just absolutely loved it. I love helping people get out of debt, and I love that there's the helping people side of getting people out of debt, but there's also a lot of complexity to bankruptcy law, and so it engages the mind, it engages the heartstrings, and you help people get out of debt. It's a great fit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a passion for you. You love this. You enjoy
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this is what I love to do.
Tell me a little bit about your backstory. Or do you come from a family of lawyers? Mom and dad were lawyers, professional, high paper?
Yeah, so my dad is a workers' comp and personal injury attorney. And so I had no intention originally of going to work for him. I went to law school. I was originally thinking I would go work in property law. I thought that was a great subject in law school. And then when I graduated, there was a huge recession going in 2008. The law firm I was going to go work at folded. And so I called my dad and I'm like, "Dad, can I come be, an injury attorney?" And he's like, yeah, come work for me. And it was a good experience working for my dad, but it wasn't the right fit for the field of law. So yeah, my dad's an attorney. He's just sort of winding down his practice right now. And then my mom, not an attorney. So
Absolutely. So shout out to Dad. Thank you for Dad for exposing you to something that you ultimately found out you did not want to do. That was not you.
Right. But I got the right degree.
Yeah, absolutely. The right degree. So shout out to Dad. Big round of applause to Dad there. Thank you, Mom and Dad. You guys are awesome. You guys have poured into this gentleman, and he is serving in what is now a space. Finances, money, one of the number one causes of relationship issues and business issues. Bankruptcy is not just for businesses. Individuals can file bankruptcy. Is that correct?
Oh, all the time. It is much, much more common for individuals. At my firm, we probably do 500 individual bankruptcies, and that's individuals or husbands and wives, or actually same-sex couples. But either individuals or married couples, we do those bankruptcies all the time. And it's actually really, really rare to do a business bankruptcy. We come across a couple of those a year. But by and large, it's just families who are struggling. And like you're saying, I mean, that stuff tears families apart until you get it under control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So have you, this is getting a little personal, have you ever had to file bankruptcy?
No, I
Okay.
have struggled financially a lot. My first couple years of my career, getting out, having no experience, and basically making up a job working for my dad, and then moving cross country, and I struggled financially a lot. And so I never got to the point that we had to actually file bankruptcy. But I know what it's like to feel that financial stress and to go through they're turning off my power. What are we going to do now? And how are we going to, I don't know, get through this? So those challenges are real. So I didn't actually make it all the way to a bankruptcy, but we definitely have been through some hard times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate this. I need your help then for the viewer who may not know that they're already is bankruptcy for people who can't pay their bills? Is bankruptcy for people who are on the verge of not being able to pay their bills? I've been able to
Yeah.
come close, but I'm able to get by, oodles and noodles. I mean, ramen every
Yeah.
day.
You,
What
you
who
know,
is
don't look at so much your monthly budget. If you're looking at your monthly budget, you can look at how much of your monthly budget is going to just servicing your debt. If you're not making any progress on paying off your debt, if you're just making minimum payments or the debt's getting bigger every month, it's time to start thinking about bankruptcy. If you've got debt collectors suing you or threatening you and you don't have any way to pay them, then it's time to start thinking about bankruptcy. So it's not so much a cash flow issue. It's, are people coming for me? Am I unable to come up with a way to do this on my own? This is where you get beyond the point of, I'm going to work some extra overtime or drive Uber and be able to fix my finances. This is, I can't come up with a path on my own to pay back this debt, and I need something bigger and more powerful than just overtime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So bankruptcy, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Bankruptcy is not just for the person or the business who you owe. Is that too far gone? Is it too late if I've fallen behind on my bills? I've accrued a massive amounts of debt. Is it too late for me to file
It's
bankruptcy?
really never too late. It's better to do this sooner. It's better to talk to an attorney sooner, but it's not going to be too late. Worst case scenario is you're starting to get garnished, you're starting to get foreclosed, you've got creditors taking money out of your bank accounts. You can still call us, because the second we file the bankruptcy, it stops all those creditor activities dead in their tracks.
Really?
Right. But you've still been garnished. So you're not getting that money back,
Mm-hmm.
but we could stop it right in its tracks by filing the bankruptcy case.
Will bankruptcy release the garnishment?
Yeah. So what happens is we file a bankruptcy case. It's all online these days. We go to the court website, we submit the bankruptcy petition, and this is 70 pages. It's like a giant tax return. And then we immediately get a notification from the bankruptcy court saying, right now you are protected, right when we upload your information. Then we take that printout from the bankruptcy court, we send it to payroll, and we send it to the creditor, and we say, hey, our guy is immediately protected and you have to stop. And they do. They have to stop right then and there.
I love that. That's a lifeline. That's a lifeline.
Yeah. So I just published my own book. We give it away free to our clients. If you go to my website, you can, we give away free PDF copies. But the image, it's not on like a lifeline. We've got a life preserver on the front. because one of the metaphors that I build in the book is that debt is like this spiral. It's this whirlpool that just starts sucking you deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can't get out on your own. And that's why you need that life preserver. You need the bankruptcy. You need somebody to just jump in and pull you out of the crazy spiral.
I love that. I love it. There's hope, y'all. All
Yeah.
hope is not lost. I, I,
Right.
I want to say, and I need your help debunking this myth, because there's a lot of shame around
No.
bankruptcy, right? There's a lot of hidden shame. I think people hide
Yeah.
it because they feel I have failed. I have
Right.
messed up my life to the point where I am insolvent. I can't pay my bills. I'm a huge failure. Is the American dream dead, or are people just financially irresponsible and looking for someone to blame by coming to you and filing bankruptcy?
Let me unpack that a little bit. Think
Absolutely.
back 100 years, right? Your granddaddy, your great granddaddy, they borrowed $100 from their neighbor and they made it right. And so you want to make it right too. But the reality is, when your granddaddy borrowed money, he probably had to pay back that same amount. Nowadays, your credit cards are charging 19, 24% interest. They're charging late fees every month. So it's not that you're paying back the money that you borrowed, it's that it's spiraled. It's gotten so much worse than the amount of debt you ever borrowed. Or your car got repossessed. And so now they sold the car and they're suing you for $15,000 more. And so it's just that the whole system is stacked. It's stacked in favor of the mega trillionaire corporations. And the only legal action that you really have on your side is bankruptcy. And it's legal, it's set up to protect people. And all kinds of people file for bankruptcy and you just don't know about it. Because if your neighbor goes through a divorce, you're going to hear them fighting. You're going to know that they got divorced because somebody moved out. But if your neighbor filed a bankruptcy, they're not going to tell you about it because they're ashamed, probably. Or all kinds of famous people have filed for bankruptcy. One of my favorite examples, my kids love VeggieTales. VeggieTales filed for bankruptcy. They
No way.
filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In my book, we've got a little
What?
picture of vegetables. And it says, we declare bankruptcy. Yeah. So I don't know if you're a big VeggieTales fan, but they made the Jonah movie. And the Jonah movie was way, way too expensive. Great movie, way too expensive. And it just financially bankrupted the company. And so the original guys who founded VeggieTales filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they actually lost ownership of the company. But then a new company bought all the intellectual property, hired all the original guys to keep doing the voices, and then kept making more VeggieTales. So we as consumers kept getting more good VeggieTales content, still produced by the original guys, but the original guys ran out of money and lost control of their company.
Wow.
But
Wow.
Bob and Larry survived.
Yeah. So that's horrible to hear, but a famous child's television TV show is still here today
Right.
because someone bought them out and was able to take over and continue to do the good
Yeah.
work.
And then they came out with a new movie and they produced it. It was still a good movie, but they produced it a lot cheaper because they just broke the bank making the first VeggieTales movie.
Absolutely.
Everybody
Absolutely.
makes financial mistakes, even Phil Vischer, the guy who created VeggieTales.
Absolutely. So true. So true. So you all that here it is. You all don't have to be ashamed. You don't
Right.
have to feel like you've been defeated. That's
Yeah.
big. That's big.
And I know on your podcast here you talk about God and family, and just taking it that direction for a second. These aren't new concepts. The bankruptcy code's been around in America. It's been revamped a couple times, but these concepts go back to the Bible. In the Old Testament, they talk about the year of Jubilee, where the debts are going away. And in the New Testament, in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus himself talks about forgiving us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So this concept of debt forgiveness and of needing that escape route out of debt, these aren't new concepts. These are concepts that are endorsed in a lot of people's faith.
Absolutely. Amen. I want to pick your brain on AI, artificial intelligence. That's a
Sure.
new kid on the block. I want to use some
Yeah.
buzzwords here. If AI is supposedly supposed to wipe out millions of jobs and take away from everyone. Should bankruptcy laws be rewritten, in your opinion, to protect workers from an
I don't.
economy they can't compete in, or do you think the law is good as is?
Well, here's what I think is going to happen. All right. So let me put this in a story that's already happened. I had a guy who was a forklift driver, and he was making $70,000 a year, driving a forklift, minimal skills, minimal training. He had a car, he had a house, he had a whole lifestyle based on that income. And then the company he worked for folded. He didn't have a job anymore. And now all of a sudden he's looking around for forklift jobs and they're paying $17 an hour. So now he's got a lifestyle that he can't afford. So you file the bankruptcy, surrender back anything he can't afford anymore, and now he gets a fresh start and he's able to reset his income and expenses based on his new ability to pay. And so bringing it back to your AI situation, let's say you've got somebody who's a highly skilled coder and they're good at writing code, and now AI has replaced the ability to hire programmers. So that person isn't going to be making $200,000 a year anymore. They probably need to get out of an expensive mortgage and car payment, probably need to go back to school. But if they can first hit that reset button, get themselves out of all the debt, now at least they have a fresh start and don't have the baggage bringing them down anymore. And hopefully they can find a new job, a new career field, doing something else. But quite honestly, if you're making huge money and AI just replaced you, you're probably going to take a hit to your income, and bankruptcy can help you adjust.
That reset. Need that reset. That reset
Right.
can help you
Fresh start. Reset.
Fresh start.
And
Absolutely.
Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is what 75% of my clients do, you can only file one of these every 8 years. So it's not like you're working the system. Ideally, you do one bankruptcy in your life. Maybe you do two. The clients who do multiple bankruptcies are that generational poverty client, But for most people, you have something terrible happen in your life. AI replaced you, or you got a divorce or something bad. You get the fresh start, and then you start over and you make different choices.
You mentioned some data. You mentioned about 70%.
Mhm.
How many repeat clients do you get?
Okay, so my law firm is only about 8 years old. So we've only had about 2 repeat clients so far. But in terms of people who have filed bankruptcy before, maybe with somebody else, 15% maybe. It's not the majority. Now, when my law firm's 20 years old and we've got more happy clients who've come back, we just don't have that length of runway. But I think it's fair to say that 10 or 15% of bankruptcy filers have done it before.
Absolutely. And that's really, I was shocked. A lady who I hold in high regard, she had filed bankruptcy 3 times. And you would never know, looking at her lifestyle, looking at the way she lives, her car, her lifestyle, you would never know that this woman filed bankruptcy 3 times. So it was incredible to me how many times someone could be a repeat. Is there something taboo? Is there something behind the scenes that the average person doesn't know about? Like, is there a sense, does your firm, if you have a client that came back to you, is there a requirement like, hey, I need to make sure this doesn't happen again? Even though I guess you wouldn't do that because that's against you.
Well, not necessarily. So here's what we do. By law, after you file bankruptcy, you're required to take a class on financial management. So we pair them with a good company that does a good class. And then we also give our clients a free book on money management tips and techniques. Because as much as I would love repeat business, what I really want is my clients to go into the world, succeed, be happy, and not be ashamed to see somebody who's struggling and say, hey, I went through that too. My life is transformed. And by the way, call Luke in Convenient Bankruptcy and they can fix you up too. I'd rather have that sort of referral than a company, than a client coming back for, multiple.
Absolutely. And that's the heart, and that's the heartbeat behind who we have here on the Gentleman Style Podcast. They want to ensure that you get taken care of.
Right. Yeah,
That's huge.
fix you
Huge.
up. And that's one of the things I love about bankruptcy to compare it to the personal injury law. So personal injury law, somebody comes in and let's say that they've, I don't know, lost a finger, right? Whatever it is, they've gotten injured badly, and you get them some money, but it's never going to be enough money because you're not getting them their finger back. You're getting them some money. Whereas in bankruptcy, people come in and they say, Luke, I've got $80,000 of debt. And we take them through the journey and then we say, okay, congratulations. We have solved your problem and we've gotten you some financial education along the way and we have fixed this for you. And I just love that journey of let's solve your problem. Let's not just like rub money on it. That just appeals to me.
Absolutely. What would you recommend to someone who's going through a divorce? It's a one-off. It's their first bankruptcy they're filing, but it's not
Yeah,
necessarily that they messed up their finances. They had a
right.
traumatic life event
Exactly.
that ruined their financial picture. So, what bankruptcy would you recommend to someone who's going through a tumultuous divorce,
Yeah.
and now because of the divorce, they're financially can't pay their debts
Well,
and their obligations? What would you
it's
recommend
usually
there?
going to be a chapter 7, but
Okay.
something interesting is there are parts of the country where you may end up wanting to do a chapter 13 instead. That's going to depend state by state because state law plays a bit of a role in bankruptcy. So for the most part, you're going to be in a 7. But what you want to do is consult a bankruptcy attorney. And especially if you see that your divorce is going to include a debt portion, you want to talk to a bankruptcy attorney as soon as you can and just say, hey, how do we get the best possible outcome here? Because one of the things to be mindful of is the divorce judge, they have jurisdiction over the two people who are divorcing. They don't have jurisdiction over creditors. So anything a divorce judge says, all right, I order Bob to pay all Sally's debts. Okay, well, credit cards don't care what the divorce court said. If Sally's on the loan, they'll still sue her. And then over in bankruptcy court, the bankruptcy court has jurisdiction over all the creditors, but they don't have jurisdiction over the end of the marriage. And so if you're going through a divorce, one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is make sure you've got a good divorce attorney, make sure you talk to a bankruptcy attorney, and have the two of them talk to each other to make sure that you're lining up all your outcomes as best you can.
That's fair. I'll take that. Broadly, can you explain the difference between chapter 7 and chapter 13 so people can have a broad understanding
Yeah.
of the key differences between the two?
Yeah. So chapter 7 is a liquidation, and that sounds scary, but the reality is most people filing a chapter 7 don't have anything to liquidate. But let's imagine that you filed bankruptcy and you had 3 fancy cars. Well, maybe you get to keep one in filing the bankruptcy, but the other 2 Corvettes, those get sold by a trustee. The proceeds go to the creditors. But in a chapter 7, you're not making any payments on your debts. You're showing, hey, I'm broke and I need to get out of these debts. Your debts get eliminated. And if you have fancy stuff, it probably gets taken and sold. But your regular everyday stuff, you get to keep as part of your fresh start. Specifically, that's going to vary state by state. Now, chapter 13 bankruptcy is usually a 60-month bankruptcy that you are making payments on your debts every month. You make one payment to a chapter 13 trustee. You're not necessarily even paying all your debts, but it's a payment plan bankruptcy as opposed to a walk away from your debts bankruptcy.
Thank you. That's good. Woo-hoo! I love this. Woo! I love this. You all see the nuggets, the gems he's dropping here for us? I love this. I love this.
If you want more, you can get a free copy of my book and read all the gems or watch my YouTube videos.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Connect, connect, connect. Do bankruptcies include medical debt as well, or do they only cover creditor debt? Like what all
absolutely.
can be considered in a bankruptcy? Can
All
I
right,
put student loans in my bankruptcy?
The broad answer is debt. When you file bankruptcy, every single type of debt needs to be included in your case. They're going to fall into different classifications, though. Recent tax debt is called priority tax debt. That's not going to be discharged. Some older tax debt can be. Secured debts are things like your car loan, your house loan, and in the bankruptcy, you're going to make a choice. Do I want to keep the thing and keep making payments, or do I want to surrender this secured item back to the creditor and wipe out all my liability for it? So that's secured debts, like a car loan or a house loan. Then you have unsecured debts, which is generally everything else. So this is medical debt. This is payday loans, credit cards, loans, utility bills that you didn't pay. Now, also included in that, though, are some special categories. Student loans are considered unsecured, non-dischargeable debts. And then we've also got domestic support, which is alimony and child support. Those are also not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So you still list those and maybe you make payments on them in a Chapter 13, but those aren't things that you're walking away from.
Absolutely. So I'm terrified now. So my medical debt, I got the kidney donated. Are they going to come after and say, "Hey, give us back the kidney and we'll wipe away this debt"?
No, because the reality also behind the scenes is that doctors and hospitals are getting their real funding from the insurance companies and from the federal government. But as part of those contracts, they have to pursue you for your portion of it. And if they don't pursue you for your portion of it, they could lose their right of reimbursement from the health insurance company or from Medicare and Medicaid. So they have to pursue it against you. But as soon as you file bankruptcy, you eliminate that debt, you keep the kidney, they can't repo it, and then you get on with your life. Now, I would say there's a solid chunk of bankruptcy filings that are due to medical debt, but it's not as many as it used to be.
That's good.
We've got a lot more health insurance in the country than we used to, and so medical bankruptcies are actually less common than they were 30 years ago, but they still happen.
Absolutely. And I didn't know that student loan debt is bankruptable.
Yes. So this is pretty cool. It's hard. What you do is after you file the bankruptcy, we file an adversary proceeding, which is a lawsuit against the Department of Education. And we try to establish that your particular student loans should be discharged based on your specific situation. So specifically, we're looking at three things. Do you have a current inability to pay your student loans? Do you have a future inability to pay your student loans? And have you exercised good faith throughout the process? If you meet those three criteria, we can discharge student loans through what we call a SLAP, which is a student loan adversary proceeding.
Who determines if do you and your firm determine it? Does a judge?
Okay. So here's what we do. We do a consultation with somebody and we examine these factors. What's changed in this process? The laws remain the same, but in the last 5 years, the Department of Education has developed a form. It's called an attestation form. It's about 25 pages, and it's designed to help us objectively determine, is the Department of Education going to view this case favorably? So we work through the attestation with our clients. We look at it, we say, hey, we think the DOE is going to look at this case favorably. So then after we file your bankruptcy, we sue the Department of Education and we send over the attestation form. And then we answer all their questions. We provide documentation. And if the Department of Education agrees with us that we met those criteria, current inability to pay, future inability to pay, and good faith, then we'll enter into a settlement agreement to discharge some or sometimes all of the student loans. But this isn't going to be for every case. This is specific case by case, looking for people who really can't be affording to pay the student loans back.
Absolutely. There's options.
Yeah. And it's important to realize this is very different than politicians just saying everybody gets $10,000 off their student loans, regardless of whether they deserve it or not. This is case by case, looking at people who need this relief and saying, we need to present this to the court, to the Department of Education, and show why my client needs this help, case by case.
Absolutely. Every case is different. Every
Absolutely.
situation is different.
Absolutely. That's why you need to talk to somebody. Talk about your situation. There's only so much you can glean from reading a book. You need to actually talk to an attorney.
Absolutely. So get the book, y'all. Get his book, and then schedule an appointment.
And if you have lots of money, you can buy it on Amazon too. You can get a free copy from the website, but I also get some royalties if you buy it on Amazon.
Absolutely. We support. Which one, I want to ask, which one do you see more of? Do you see people being victims of predatory lenders? That was a big thing when I served in the military. Do you see a lot more people being victimized by Americans being victims of predatory lending? And that's why they needed to file bankruptcy? Or are they just addicted to lifestyle, keeping up with the Joneses, and inflation caught up to them, and now they need to file bankruptcy? Which one do you see more of?
I think it's more predatory. The two biggest predatory things that we have going on here in Oklahoma, we have payday loans. Payday loans are really, really high interest rate loans with minimal government supervision. And then we also have car loans. So here in Oklahoma and most parts of the country, you can't get around without a car. And the car places know that. And so if you're somebody where your credit isn't great, they might start by charging you 18% interest on your vehicle. Somebody with good credit, when I bought my car, I was able to get 0% financing or 3% financing. Somebody who's paying 18 or 22% interest is literally going to pay twice as much money for the exact same car that I bought because I had good credit and I didn't get taken advantage of by a predatory lender. But I know that there are car lots. I know lots of them where you walk in and the lowest interest rate that they're going to offer you is 18%. And that's just going to double the amount of money you're paying for that car. Then if you don't make those payments, they repossess the car, they sue you, and they garnish your wages. So again, you're in that death spiral that we just need to get you out of. And those predatory lenders, the payday loan places, the car loans, they know exactly what they're doing. So we see that a lot.
Wow.
There's a mix. There's those. There's the I had a divorce. There's the I had a medical situation. There's the I had a job loss. You know, it comes in all flavors. The reality is most Americans can't handle a tragedy. You know, most Americans are one bad paycheck away from being broke. Lots of people are just living on the edge and something bad happens and you need help.
Absolutely. Have you ever known anyone to be scammed out of some money and need to, file bankruptcy or go to bankruptcy court for that because they were scammed?
Yeah, we've done a couple of those. They aren't crazy common, but we've had some clients with romance scams. I had a very sophisticated client, really successful businessman, and he got conned out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then his wife divorced him. And I mean, it was bad. And it all started with he totally bright guy got scammed. And then often our older clients are falling for a romance scam or, the reason the scammers hit you with all this stuff is they actually find victims. And oftentimes what happens is they just clean out all their money, but sometimes they clean out all the money and then the people borrow more and more, try and keep feeding into the scam. And now they're really hosed.
Jeez. But you were able to help. What was the outcome of those clients that were scammed out? Were you able to?
We got them a discharge of all their debts. And the reality is, I mean, it's not like the local police can figure out who scammed them out of the money. I mean, it might be somebody in Nigeria. So really the outcome we're looking for is let's get them out of all the debt and hopefully give them some education on smarter money practices.
Absolutely. That's good. That's necessary. I needed to hear that. I want to backpedal here because you brought it up earlier about couples and if you're going through a divorce and there's a lot of money involved, a lot of moving parts, get a bankruptcy attorney involved as well if there's a conversation around debts and who's going to pay what debt,
Right.
when you especially when you get around that outcome. But should married couples be allowed to file bankruptcy separately or together, even if they share the debt? Like, how do you,
Okay.
if
So let's
if it's
unpack that one.
yes,
Uh,
sir.
so let's imagine you have a debt that both the husband and wife signed off on. Or let's just imagine a car loan where you and your cousin both signed on it. If somebody files bankruptcy, the bankruptcy only protects the person who files. So if you and your cousin buy a car together and your cousin wrecks it and didn't have insurance, and then he files bankruptcy, they're going to sue you because it only protects the person who files. So if you've got a married couple and they're both responsible for a debt, they should both file. And then when a married person files for bankruptcy, the court looks at their eligibility based on household income, even if both people didn't file. So what you do in these types of situations is you look at it debt by debt and you say, okay, do you both need to file? Are all the debts just in one person's name? Or there's enough overlap where you're both responsible for these debts where you both need to be filing? So more often than not, we just do a joint case. It doesn't cost any extra money, and then you're eliminating debts for both of you.
Absolutely. Is child support bankruptable?
No, child support cannot be discharged in bankruptcy.
Absolutely. All right. All right. I was digging, y'all. I was digging for my fellas in the audience. I was trying to get y'all, some relief there. Because, obviously it's gentleman style podcast show, and I don't lean to just the men, right? Because
Sure.
bankruptcy is not a gender specific thing, right?
Right.
Women file, men file. And so I am just here as a public servant trying to get the data because these are
Yeah.
things we didn't know. I had for years I was on the impression, and I think even the college is, you can't bankrupt student loan. I'm gonna get their
Oh, right.
money no
Yeah, they
matter
make
what.
you go
I
to a
didn't even
class
know.
and like sign off. I will pay back my debts, even though they're charging me so much money. Um, yeah, but there's actually relief out there.
I remember years ago dating a young lady. um in dating her, we had the conversation because it's always been dating towards marriage for me.
Mhm.
And so the conversation came up. I said, how much debt do you have? And she had $400,000 of student loan debt. That was now she was a collegiate. She was teaching on the collegiate level. She was teaching on the college level, but she was an adjunct professor. She wasn't the actual professor.
Yeah,
Professor, that wasn't her class. Um, and she was praying for that relief that if you work in a public
yeah,
service position for 10 years, they waive the whole thing. So she had amassed $400,000 of student loan debt, but her salary as an adjunct professor at a college was nowhere near that.
right,
And again, I imagine if she's watching this, she had no idea that bankruptcy is even an option for her because she just kept
right.
racking up more and more.
Now, one of the things they've added in the last 15, 20 years is income-based repayment on those student loans. So you can sign up for a program where you say, okay, I have to submit verification of my income every year, but then the government is going to set my payment not based on the total amount I owe, but based on what I actually earn. And then after 20 years of repayment, or 25 if you went to grad school, then there's a forgiveness that's supposed to kick in. I don't know that any of them kicked in yet because I don't think the programs have been around for 20 years yet. But that income-based repayment can be a good option for somebody like her, where maybe she's making enough money to live on, but realistically, like maybe she goes to teach at a private college instead. She's making enough to live on, but not enough to be paying $400,000 of debt back. Certainly not with interest stacked on top of it.
Absolutely.
And we can get a whole different conversation, but higher education is very predatory. The the federal government will say, okay, you can have up to $40,000 a year for student loans. So now all of a sudden tuition is $40,000. Now they change it. Oh, you can have $45,000 a year of student loans. Well, now tuition's $45,000 a year. Is your degree any more valuable? I got a bachelor's degree in English. What is that going to get me? That's a different conversation, but it plays in my mind as it relates to the student loan conversation of, is this even repayable? Did I get any equivalent value relating to the amount of debt that I just took on?
That's true. That's true. And in her case, the amount of debt, I was trying to find the curveball, and I said she has $400,000 in debt, but it's all towards law. And I said, why don't you go? Have you taken the Juris Doctor? Have you taken the law exam? And because she's teaching law to law school students, and I'm like, you need to go be a lawyer. And she said, well, I'm willing to take the test. I was willing to give her the money because the exam is pretty expensive. Sure. But I was willing to invest in her to take the test because she felt confident she could pass it with all the degrees in law that she had. And so ultimately but then I asked the auxiliary question, what type of law do you want to practice? And I think she wanted to do family law. And I was like, girl, that's not going to be enough income based off of what family law practitioners make. You need to open your own practice, your own firm, or you need to go into business law, protecting businesses. She's like, I'm not working for no corrupt businesses and corrupt corporations. And I was like, oh my gosh. So family law doesn't pay enough to push back against that amount of debt. So it was a monster.
Yeah, it is.
Well, unfortunately, we broke up.
But then you also got to imagine other people, like they went through that schooling and then they failed the bar exam, or they failed. I know a guy who went to physical therapy school and he failed the test 3 times and he could never take a physical therapy test again. He still got all the student loans to show for it. That guy needs to be filing bankruptcy on those student loans, because if he's been in repayment for a number of years, if he's not even qualified to do what he went to school for, that's somebody who's realistically never going to pay those loans back.
Yeah, especially if they can't practice what they studied.
Right.
Absolutely. That is so that was gold. If I had a mic for you to drop, I'd give it to you so you could drop. That is huge, huge, huge. I want to kind of poke the morale, the ethical compass here. Is it ethical, in your opinion, for someone making 6 figures to file bankruptcy to wipe out their debt when technically they could pay it? They have the income to pay it.
This is where Chapter 13 bankruptcy usually comes into play. So people who are making 6 figures can still be broke. People making 6 figures, maybe they're working all the hours, and so they're living off the credit cards, eating out all the time, and they're just spending more than they earn. So Chapter 7 bankruptcy, in order to file it, there are income limits. It's different state by state and actually changes twice a year. So there's income limits. And if you get above that, so Oklahoma, 6 figures, that's going to be too much. New York City, 6 figures is probably still a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. But there's becomes a certain point where each state says that's too much income for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now we put you in a 13. And in a 13, you're making payments on your debts. It doesn't mean that you're paying all of them. Because sometimes what happens is you've got somebody who was earning $140,000 a year and had credit card debt, and now they're earning $110,000 a year. And are they making a lot of money? Yeah, they still are, but they still have debt. And in Chapter 13, the court will actually set a payment based on their individual situation. That's their expectation for what somebody with that income, assets, and debt level should pay. So bankruptcy is very case by case. We can come up with very customized solutions. But high income people usually end up paying some of their debts back.
Absolutely. So I want to make sure I understand this correctly. There is a possibility that you'll pay some in a Chapter 13. There are possibilities to pay some debt, but there are debts that won't be getting paid based off of your income. So like they prioritize which debts have to be paid and which don't?
Yeah. So the first thing that we do is we work up what's called your means test. It's your Form 122C1. And this 10-page form is going to look at your income and your expenses. At the end of it, it's going to say, all right, you have this amount left over according to the court formula. So let's say it's $300. Mm-hmm. Each month of the bankruptcy, you're going to pay $300 towards your unsecured creditors. On top of that, you're also going to pay your secured creditors, which is your car loans. And if you have tax debt, you're paying that too, because that's a different category. That's priority debt. So we're doing classifications. We're running numbers to see. Bankruptcy is math-based. There's a lot of numbers. But we're running those equations and saying, okay, what do we think this person should pay? So what we do is we file the Chapter 13 and we file something called a Chapter 13 plan. And that is our proposal for your individual situation on how your case is going to work. That gets reviewed by the creditors, the Chapter 13 trustee, and ultimately the bankruptcy judge. And when all of those parties have agreed, we now have a court order saying, all right, for your 60-month bankruptcy, your payment is going to be X based on your specific factors. And then you make those payments for 60 months.
I'll take it. That's a deal. That's a deal. Yeah. So I have a clip. I have a clip that I wanted to play and see if I could get your opinion on. This is Pinky Cole from Slutty Vegan. She just filed bankruptcy. She talks about bankruptcy being a smart investment tool for businesses who are trying to restructure, trying to reorganize, like you said, restructure things. And so I wanted to play that clip to get a bankruptcy attorney's professional opinion on this subject here. So here it is. Let's roll the tape.
On bankruptcy.
So bankruptcy, if you have more debts than you have revenue and you are insolvent, which means that either you can't pay your bills or you have more bills than you have revenue, and your bottom line is the color red and not green, that means that you are insolvent. That means that by textbook definition, you can't pay your bills. Okay. So the U.S. Bankruptcy Code has provided you tools to be able to fix the problem. There's 6 main codes for people if you need some relief in your business. There's a Chapter 7 if you want to close your business down. Like if you're done, you sell all your assets and then you liquidate, you close the business, you want to walk away. That means that 99% of the time, all of your debts are discharged. And I'm not a lawyer, by the way, but that means that the debts that you have, they can be discharged in court. Okay. Chapter 13, it's a reorganization, but payment plan, and you have a certain amount of time to pay your debt back. You still have to pay, but it's a certain threshold that if you are below that threshold, you have a certain amount of time to pay. Chapter 11 is where most businesses file, or if you have a lot of assets. So for me, personally, I have a lot of assets. I have a lot of properties. Okay. So Chapter 11 is if you make over, I think the threshold is like 1.3. All the bankruptcy attorneys get in the comments and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's like $1.3 million. If you have more than $1.3 million in assets, you have to file a Chapter 11. So I filed Chapter 11. And what 11 is, it's a reorganization, and you also get a certain amount of time to pay it back. And then there's a couple more, but the main ones for the context of this conversation is critical because it provides you the relief that you need. Now, let's talk about the economy for a second. Y'all are earning your leisure. You see it, right? Y'all talk about it all the time. All of our biggest businesses in America have either filed or are filing or are considering filing right now. And it has gotten so common because the way the economy is set up right now, people need relief. Businesses need relief. Some of the biggest fast food chains are filing Chapter 11, right? Some of the biggest, there's pharmaceutical companies there, retail chains, all of these companies are filing for Chapter 7s or Chapter 11s, but it's for relief for their business because they either one, can't afford to pay their bills, they're insolvent, or they just need to reorganize, right? And sometimes you need a reorganization so that you can really be able to restructure the plan and get back to a space in your business where you can become profitable. Bankruptcy is a tool. Your president has filed for bankruptcy. How many times? 6? A lot of times.
A lot.
So
Yeah.
So that was Pinky Cole, Slutty Vegan, talking about restructuring as a tool. Your thoughts, Mr. Homan, sir?
I agree with everything she said. I think she's spot on with all of it. For somebody who is wealthier, like President Trump, or somebody who's got $1.3 million of assets, then Chapter 11 is the way to go. Chapter 11 is a very, very expensive bankruptcy. It's fancy, it's customizable, it's expensive. That's usually just for the wealthiest people or for corporations. So like she was saying, fast food chains, we see oil companies filing for bankruptcy in Oklahoma, Toys R Us, General Motors. You see those big companies using Chapter 11. But then regular folk are using Chapter 13 and Chapter 7, and they're just using it as a tool. They're using it as a way to fix their bottom line. Like she says, when you got red at the bottom, you have a problem.
This blows my mind tremendously. $1 million, billion-dollar companies filing for bankruptcy. And when we had COVID,
keep in mind, she might have $1.3 million of assets, but if she's got $2.6 million of debt, then her company's worth negative $1.3 million. So then she can go into a Chapter 11 and say, judge and creditors, I've got assets. And if you let me keep running these businesses, how about I pay you 25 cents on the dollar? And then the creditors look at it and say, all right, we think that's the way to go. Or sometimes in the case of Toys R Us, they'll say, no, we don't think there's really a market for Jeff anymore. And we're just going to make you sell all the toys. So sometimes in Chapter 11, they wind up in a liquidation. The toy stores close. Or sometimes, like General Motors, you just sort of restructure that debt. You still have $1.3 million of assets, but maybe now you only have $1.7 million of debt. And so there's still work to be done, but it's no longer, a death trap.
So why, when we had COVID, thank you for that. When we had COVID-19, and then the government stepped in and did all these bailouts for the airlines because no one was traveling.
Right.
No one was traveling anymore, and the airlines, that's how they make their money. Why didn't they just let the businesses, why didn't they just let JetBlue, Southwest file bankruptcy instead of bailing them out? Any thoughts there? That might be.
So a lot of these bailouts weren't just a gift of money. They were just a very large loan. So was it 2007? They had the TARP program, Troubled Asset Relief Program, and the government was talking about all this too big to fail. So what they were really doing there is Congress was authorizing huge loans to these companies. And in most cases, these companies actually paid the money back once the disaster was over. And so the TARP program, I'm pretty positive, didn't actually lose money. It actually got the money back. So it wasn't so much that the companies needed to file bankruptcy on their debts. It's just that they needed that immediate infusion of cash to keep running the business. It's a different set of problems.
Okay. So I appreciate that. This has been an epic conversation. I'm going to lead you with these two last questions. One, how we can find you, connect with you. But two, if you could wave your magic wand and change one thing in the bankruptcy code of law, what would you change?
All right. So first off, convenientbankruptcy.com is the website. We also have a YouTube channel. We release new episodes every week. It's Convenient Bankruptcy. Search under that under YouTube. Magic wand. So there's this concept in bankruptcy called reaffirmation agreements. It is incredibly tedious and everybody hates it. The judges hate it. The creditors hate it. In California, they even banned it. Incredibly tedious paperwork that just makes bankruptcy more expensive. I would eliminate as much of that kind of stuff as possible. When they reformed the bankruptcy code in 2005, it was called BAPSIPA, the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention Consumer Protection Act. What it really did more than anything else was create a lot more bureaucracy and a lot more paperwork that just made bankruptcy more expensive and time consuming. And if I were to wave a magic wand, I would try and eliminate some of that bureaucracy. Keep all the bankruptcy relief there, keep your various chapters. But if you could streamline the process a little bit more, make it less expensive, that'd be my improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take it in. Take it in. All right, y'all. We have to let this incredible man go. He has many more lives to change, many more people to influence, and many more people to help. Public servant. That's what comes to mind here today. Mr. Homan, you are doing incredible work. Let me say this to you publicly. Don't ever give up. We need you.
Thanks.
We need you, what you and your firm are doing. And buy the book, y'all. Again, for our audio listeners, that's convenientbankruptcy.com, www.convenientbankruptcy.com. Check them out. Get connected. Get the book, preferably. We have an audio book for those that are currently in bankruptcy if you can't afford it. He has a free version, but also support. Get the hard copy book, available now everywhere. All right, y'all. We got to let this incredible man go. We got to end the show here, like we end every show. Take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the super fragilistic expialidocious Mr. Luke Homan, signing off. Love you guys.
Thanks, Marcus.
Absolutely.